Resilience plus Rise, the podcast, where resilience is not just a concept, but a lived experience. I'm your host, Thomas Scaria, a resilience coach, a ultra marathoner, and a relentless believer in the human spirit's ability to rise. This podcast is a companion to my book, Resilience plus Rise 26.2 Transformative Miles to Unleash Your Marathon of Life Mindset. Each episode is a raw, unfiltered dive into the stories of those who have faced life's hardest battles and emerged stronger. When just say that statement, stories of those who have faced life's hardest battles, today's guest, yes, can stand in his full length and say he has faced the hardest battle. What would happen one day when you wake up and you realize your body just doesn't function from the neck down? You're totally broken, mentally, physically. You don't know what to do. But here comes Ian Bowen, who has shown persistence. With it, anything is possible if you put your mind to it.
Mhm.
Ian Bowen, he empowers people to overcome their setbacks because he has gone through it, make them realize their potentials. He is a certified life and a success coach. So, Ian, rather than me talking on and on, welcome to Resilience Plus Rise, the podcast.
Thomas, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate you so much. That was I was just waiting to listen to what you had to say next, because I was just enthralled, because I was like, yes, keep talking, Thomas. I am believing everything you're saying, because like you said, that is that's what we as coaches we talk about. Resilience is
Mhm.
so important. And as coaches, being able to take somebody else to where they can't get by themselves
True.
is key and essential to what we
Okay.
do. And being able to do that through our own lived experience makes it authentic, right? It's like we're not making this up. It's not something that we read in a book somewhere. It's something that we lived ourselves, which makes it that much more real.
So, Ian, before we can get into that, the meat of that entire thing, which is very much valuable, but I always tend to say is that from our deepest of pains or
Mhm,
our deepest of wounds
mhm,
shines the brightest of light. You just mentioned you have lived that experience.
mhm,
So, listeners, as I just briefly mentioned, is that initially Ian had to go through a life transformational element. So, do you want to walk through what happened in those periods, or what happened and how the transformation took place?
Sure, I will give you the cliff notes. I'll share everybody all the details of the story, but um, what it was is 17 years ago now. About
Hmm.
I was paralyzed from the chest down. I was diagnosed with a very rare disease called neurosarcoidosis. But the only way for the doctors to give me a 100% positive diagnosis was for them to do surgery. And that surgery was they needed to biopsy a lesion that was growing inside of my spinal cord. And this
Okay.
lesion was causing me a lot of tingling sensations, some chest pain, and it started to cause me the inability to ambulate normally, like just being able to get up out of a chair and starting to walk. Like I was losing that capacity. So this happened very rapidly, happened probably in about a 6 week period from the initial onset of the tingling sensations and me realizing that something's going on here
Hmm.
to the point to where I was losing the ability to walk.
Okay.
Going into the surgery, my neurosurgeon and neurologist, they had exhausted every test possible to figure out what this was.
Okay.
Every test came back inconclusive. At
Hmm.
this point, they said, Ian, we have one option left, and that is surgery. But let us be
Okay.
very clear, this is
Hmm.
a very risky surgery.
Ouch.
You
Okay.
could be paralyzed for the rest of your life. But we need to do it because we have an idea of what's going on in your spinal cord. It's either a tumor growing on your spinal cord, meaning it could be cancer, or it's this disease called neurosarcoidosis.
Okay.
So here I am, 32 years old, in great shape, never broken a bone in my body, been an athlete all my life, two small kids. I'm a young father. I have a 6-year-old daughter, 1-year-old son. And I'm thinking to myself, so you're telling me that I might either have cancer or this disease I've never heard of before. Being, I guess, naively positive,
Mm-hmm.
and again, never going through like breaking a bone and having to heal from that, I'm thinking, okay, you know what? Let's do the surgery. You're going to go in, you're going to figure out what it is, you're going to fix me up, and I'm going to heal and be on my way. So I opt for the surgery. Next day, go into surgery. When I wake up a couple hours later, a nurse says to me, Mr. Bowen, good news, it's not cancer.
Cancer. Okay.
It is neurosarcoidosis, which we thought is what it was, which is treatable, not curable.
Ah.
I don't have cancer, but the worst possible outcome had happened. Everything from the chest down was gone. No feeling, no sensation, no movement. Now, at first, I thought it was just the anesthesia, right? Because when you wake up and all of a sudden, that morning you could move everything, and all of a sudden you wake up and now you can't. Having that happen to you, it blows your mind, right? And so immediately I think I was in denial, like this. Okay, this isn't a paralysis. This is the anesthesia. Well, by day 2, reality started to set in. And that same day, my neurologist and my neurosurgeon came to visit, and they started talking about my prognosis, about my future.
Mm-hmm.
And they started telling me, Ian, we think you'll be able to walk again,
We think. Okay.
but you were most likely going to need a walker, a cane, or crutches, some sort of durable medical equipment to do so. Now, Thomas, I had just started running 5Ks about a year earlier. And this was in June of 2009. And I was training for a race in August. So in the back of my head, I don't know if I just didn't want to let the reality seep in quite yet. I asked them,
Mm-hmm.
am I ever going to be able to run again? And that's when the doctor looked at me and said, no. And in that moment, a little voice in my head and in my heart said, watch me. And that was such a
Wonderful.
pivotal moment in my life, because that moment, that instance, that millisecond could have shifted and gone the other direction, where I could have accepted their prognosis. And one thing that I want to get across to anyone who's listening to this podcast is to never let someone else's perception of your capabilities become your reality. Because if I would have done that, it is very likely that I would still be using a walker, a cane, or crutches to get around.
Mm-hmm.
But since I made the decision in advance, in that moment, to do everything in my power to be able to get back to 100% of who I was before the surgery,
Mm-hmm.
that lit that fire to do everything that I could.
Okay.
And that is the basis of my rinse philosophy that I use, that I teach, that I speak on, my rinse framework. That is what I've been coaching my fitness clients as well as my life coaching clients on, and using that mindset, because for me, I truly believe mindset is everything.
Of course.
And if my mindset would have been different, so would have my outcome, right? Positive persistence. It's what I talk about a lot. Positive thoughts yield positive outcomes. But here's the thing.
Hmm.
The converse is also true.
Yes, of
Negative
course.
thoughts yield negative outcomes. We have to pay attention to what we're thinking.
So again, a helicopter view about what you heard the voice, and
Mhm.
then here you are, August. You did the run.
Great question. So I didn't do because I at that point, this was a little over a month and a half later. It's been about 4 weeks in the hospital. When I left the hospital, I was in a wheelchair. Luckily for me, I hooked up with an amazing physical therapist who started working with me like 5 days a week. When August came, I had progressed to be able to walk with a walker.
Okay.
Now, just to be clear, I had to have ankle braces on, very tight ankle braces because I still couldn't feel everything.
Oh, okay.
So every step I took, if I didn't have those braces on, I would roll my ankles and I wouldn't be able to feel it.
Ouch.
So I
Okay.
had to wear these braces. So for this race, even though it was a 5K, I'll say it like this: I only made it a mile with my walker, shuffling, moving my feet, shuffle the walker, move my feet. But in that mile that I only was able to walk was a huge victory
Of course.
because I had done something that the doctors told me that I wasn't going to be able to do. I wasn't supposed to be able to do that. But again, the strength in having your mindset, and I'm a firm believer of when you have your mindset and your heart set in alignment, mindset thinking that I can, heart set being the conviction that I know that I will. When those two things are in alignment, Thomas, you're unstoppable. You're on fire.
Fantastic. Again, if I ask you briefly
Mhm.
from that point onwards, how many races and how many competitions have you gone and have
Gee. Um, I have 2 marathons under my belt, a dozen plus half marathons, and I don't even know how many 5Ks since
okay.
then. So I've gotten to the, and here's the thing too, if I can share this. My last marathon that I ran was in Rochester, Minnesota,
Okay.
which is the home of the Mayo Clinic, which is where I had my surgery.
Oh, okay.
As I crossed the finish line, there stands my care team from 15 years prior. So this is 2 years ago. 15 years prior, there's my physical therapist. There's my neurosurgeon. There's my neurologist. There's the head of physical therapy from the Mayo Clinic at the finish line, cheering me on. And what a surreal moment
Incredible.
that was.
Incredible.
That was amazing. I'll tell you what, when I saw my surgeon, I told him, I gave him a big hug and I was like, I don't know if I want to hug you or punch you in the face. And he was like, what do you mean? Why would you say that? I
No,
said, because you told me that I was never going to be able to run again. And for the longest time, and I didn't tell him this, but for the longest time, that upset me.
of course.
I was like, why would he tell me that?
He was
Why would
thinking.
he give me this limit? Why would he give me this ceiling on my potential? But after a while, I had to realize that, doctors only know what they know. They only know from their experience.
True. And also, there was a word which has been, which you have used, and which I also firmly believe it's a mindset. Now,
Mhm,
if he had said that you're going to walk, but if your mindset is that, okay, he told me I'll walk and let me see how it, expecting that the third day you'll get up and miracles happen,
mhm,
expecting that by itself you'll start walking,
mhm.
okay, without your own grit and gumption.
Right.
Okay, so then whom do you blame? You blame back the doctor, right? Yeah, the doctor told me I could walk, but now I cannot walk because
Yes.
I. So
Right.
it's I can in some way maybe I can empathize with them also because they're just
Oh,
playing safe.
absolutely. And medicine is a practice,
Yes,
right? And he is, again, dealing with the results that he saw from other individuals who had
true.
similar surgeries or similar injuries potentially as me.
Hmm.
but they weren't me.
Okay.
Right. And I'll tell you this, when he told me that I was never going to run again, one of the first thoughts that went through my mind, Thomas, and this may sound cocky, but it was, do you know who you're talking to? Like, who are you to tell me that I am not going to run again? Right.
Oh, wonderful.
But that, if you want to call it cockiness or whatever, that shielded me from allowing that negativity to seep in.
Okay.
That shielded me from negative thoughts starting to pervade my mind and becoming the prism or the lens that I looked through moving forward. That thought of, I don't know who you think you are, doc, but that's not going to be me, is the thing that helped me set that positive mindset. It's the thing that helped me keep my focus moving forward.
Wonderful. Which is a beautiful segue to the next question is that if you look, you have been talking about mindset, you're talking about
Mhm,
resilience also, you're talking about
mhm,
persistence of getting into the. Now, if there were around 3 to 4 key elements that you have learned in the last decade plus, and of course, now you're running your own, you're operating your own gym,
mhm,
and you're a trainer, you are a keynote speaker, but then
mhm.
the lessons that you have learned, the life lessons that you have learned, that if you could tell the listeners just 3 or 4 of them, what would come right on top?
Thomas, I'll give you 5. And that
Okay.
is the rinse framework that I always talk about.
Okay.
And this you can use for any segment of your life, any setback that you have in any area, whether it's relationships, whether it's business, whether it's physical. And the rinse framework is an acronym.
Okay.
And the R stands for remember.
Okay.
And that is remembering that you have been able to overcome adversity before. It may
True.
have been a different season, it may have been a different situation, but you have made a comeback from something before. And knowing that you've done it before allows you to believe that you can do it again.
Beautiful.
The I in rinse stands for imagine. Now, you can imagine being in a hospital for 3 weeks, almost 4, paralyzed. I had a lot of time on my hands. And I used my imagination to focus on what I wanted to achieve. And I think as adults, we lose the imagination that we have as kids, right?
Sure.
Because our kids, like my kids now, they have crazy imaginations, right? And no one is going to tell them that they can't live their dream unless an adult literally says you won't be able to do that. But until they hear that, they believe it. They believe they're going to be an astronaut, they're going to be a firefighter, they're going to be a lawyer, whatever it is, because they have that imagination. So when we are able to imagine, not only visually, but also imagine the emotion that we're going to feel when we achieve our goal, that starts to pull that goal towards us. And what I mean by that is that kicks in your reticular activating system, right? So when you start to put out to the universe, this is the vision that I have, this is how I'm going to feel when it happens, all of a sudden you start to hear conversations you wouldn't have heard before. You maybe see an article in a magazine you wouldn't have paid attention to before.
True.
Little things start to pop into your periphery because your imagination and what you were imagining is starting to make you pay attention to those things. And then the N in rinse is for notice. And this is for me, this is a very hard thing for me to be able to create for myself.
Hmm.
And that is noticing your small wins. As I spoke of before, I had an amazing physical therapist, and we created a really strong bond because I saw her 5 days a week for over a year and a half. And she would know and just see on the days that I would come in, I wasn't feeling it. I was in a negative mood. I didn't want to do the work. I was having a pity party for myself.
Hmm.
And she would allow me to sit in those feelings for a minute. And then she would say, "Are you done now? Can we get to work now?"
Wonderful.
And she would say, "Ian, look, I understand that you are feeling that you're not making the progress that you want to make, or you're not going as fast as you want to go. But I need you to notice how far you've come. I need you to notice all of the obstacles, all the hurdles, all the hoops you have jumped over and jumped through that you weren't supposed to be able to, that got you to the point to where you are right now." And again, by noticing those small wins, they start to stack up one on top of the other.
Oh, yes.
And eventually they turn into big ones. So it's okay for us to pat ourselves on the back, even though we haven't completed the full assignment. We haven't reached the full goal. We need to pat ourselves on the back and say, you know what? I'm doing a good job so far.
Aha.
And that leads right into the S, which is shift. And that's shifting your mindset and focusing on the things that you can do and not focusing on the things that you perceive that you can't do. Because again, mindset is everything.
True.
Bringing us to the E in RINSE, which has actually two different meanings in this acronym. One is expect. Expect
Okay.
the journey that you're on to be difficult. Because as soon as you have that vision, as soon as you have that dream, you've now created a brand new problem for yourself.
Yes
They're
and
going to
yes.
pop up. No one's going to hand you your dream and say, here you
No.
go. You're going to have to work for it. So expect the journey to be hard. And when you do that, you are now creating mental toughness. So when the problems come up, when the hurdles come up, when the hoops come up, you can sit back and say, I was expecting you to come. I'm ready for you. Life doesn't get a chance to slap you in the face and knock you down because you were expecting it to happen. Now you're ready for it. Now, the
Okay.
other side of E, the other side of expect is expect to win. Have that
Wonderful.
mindset that no matter what, it's not over until I win. No matter what, I'm going to do everything in my power to succeed. I'm sure you are familiar with Eric Thomas,
Yes.
motivational speaker, right? He has a saying that I love. He says, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, is going to happen.
So
Now,
true.
all of us know how bad we want to breathe, right? If without air, life's over.
Oh, it's over. Yeah.
We're going to do everything in our power to be able to continue to breathe. If we have that same focus, that same intensity on going after our dreams, man,
Yes.
nothing's
Wow.
going to stop you.
That's actually so beautifully said, especially about the E part, is that expect that you are working towards it. And again, you would have seen it when you're doing your runs, wherein people have got placards.
Mhm.
And of course, some of them, which is absolutely not worth talking about, is like, oh, you're nearly there when you're in the first 100 meters of the run.
Yeah, yeah,
No.
yeah.
But one of the placards which really holds very strong for me and that gives me a motivation to work on it is, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Mhm, mhm.
So any challenge that you take on, whether it is life or run or business, if it was easy, everybody would be exceeding, I mean, becoming successful in it.
Right.
But we got to work on that.
Yeah.
Anyway, just being mindful of the time, Ian. Is there? This was just fantastic. The rinse, guys, if you got into it. And also, I'll be putting out Ian's information on my notes down below. So do go out and connect with him. He also has a beautiful newsletter which is so motivational, positive persistence. Do subscribe to it. It'll take you a long way, in one small step at a time. Because he knows what it is, taking one small step at a time to go ahead. So, what's the last, I mean, something that you can leave this conversation with?
Thomas, I think I will repeat it from what I said earlier because I think it's so important that never let someone else's perception of your capabilities become your reality. And I'll follow that up by saying, I spent years listening to mentors from afar, I'll call them, watching YouTube videos, Les Brown, you know,
Eric Thomas.
yes, all those voices saying that you have everything that you need. You have everything that you need inside you. And it never sunk in. It was like, okay, whatever, guys. That's a bunch of
Hmm.
foo-foo, right? But it's so true.
Yes.
You have everything that you need inside you. But the key to it is belief, believing in yourself. Because when we let that self-doubt creep in, that starts to create that fear, that false evidence appearing real. But when we believe in our own capabilities, man, sky's the limit.
Wonderful. Actually, that comes to exact one of the things which I again say is that this word belief, it's the difference wherein you take life to just exist or to live. It's a belief.
Mhm.
So, Ian, thank you so very much for this conversation. It has been amazing. For this is a masterclass, though it was just few minutes of a segment, but for people I am sure who will listen to it, there is a lot of learnings that can be looked into. And guys, do connect with Ian. It's going to be worth your space and time. And thank you from me on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thomas.